So he wants to build basically a counter trend type of filtering condition within BloodHound. So yeah, so for his example here is a basic mean reversion. So when an indicator is oversold, that it acts as a filter so that only long signals can be generated. And if this indicator is overbought, then it would filter out so that only short signals will get through, so that only short signals can occur. So, all right, yeah. So let's get that built here. All right, yeah, let me come up with an example. All right, so I'm going to pull up two charts here so we can have a side-by-side comparison and see what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to use the MACD for my example of an indicator running on another chart, because it'll create a very clear and kind of simple example. So what I'll do is so David mentioned kind of a mean reversion type of system here, which is basically a kind of creating a counter trend type signal. So when the MACD is negative, I'll use that as a filter so that only long signals can occur. And if the MACD is positive, then I'll use that to filter out short signals only. All right, and so that'll come from this RTY 1 minute chart here. So let's open up BloodHound, and we're going to work on the logic board here. And I'm going to go to my solvers menu, and I'm going to go to the RTY 1 minute time frame here. And I'm going to select a threshold solver. Let's connect that in there. And let me name this first. All right, so we're comparing the MACD, right, to the 0 line, but we're also kind of generating a reverse output here because, well, yeah, we're building a counter trend or mean reversion type of filter here. So let's change our input to the MACD. All right, so there's the MACD indicator. And remember to change your settings here according to how you have the MACD set up on your chart. And I'm going to use the MACD line. So that is already selected for me for both long and short signals. All right. Now our threshold is the 0 line, right, which is 0. So I'm going to leave the thresholds at 0. And for the outputs, right, I want long filtering when the MACD is negative or less than 0, right? So less than E. So I want a long output for less than E. And remember, E is the 0 line, right? Actually, A through E are all zeros. But the type of output I want is if the MACD is less than 0, because E equals the 0. And next, and so for a short output for short signal filtering, if the MACD is positive, or in other words, if the MACD is greater than A, right? Remember, A equals 0 as well. So let's just take a look at this filtering here, and let's see. I do need. There. Yeah. So if we look here, hold on. Let me turn the difference off. There we go. All right, so we can see the MACD, right? It pops above the 0 line for 1 bar here. And if you look on my NQ chart over here, we can see the cursors are synchronizing, right? So there we go. And now the MACD goes negative, and so we get a long output. And then the MACD goes positive, and now we get, right, a short output. Right? Like so. There. All right, so if you look at my cursor synchronizing on both charts there. All right, so one last step to do here. So there's our basically our indicator filtering. And last thing, I guess I'll just I'll generate some simple signals here. So I'm just going to use the inflection solver, and we're just going to identify when price, right, when the bars reverse directions. So when price reverses direction. There. So I'm just going to call this a price inflection. And the input, I'm going to set that to price. And we're just going to look to see when the close of the bar reverses direction. So if we look at this, right, whenever the bars reverse direction, so we have a bunch of down bars here, right? And then when the bar reverses up, right, for an up bar, then we get a long signal. And so now we have a bunch of up bars. And then when price reverses back down, right, we get a short signal for a reversal down. So, right, very, very simplistic, just so we have some signals, right? So this price inflection, looking at the closing price is just a very simplistic way, to generate some signals here that you can work with, for testing purposes. So now the last step that we need to do is grab a AND node and connect that in there. Right. And there we have it. So if we look, if you look at my crosshairs, right, when the MACD is positive, we only see short signals. And then when the MACD goes negative, right, we only see long signals. Yeah, and there we go again. So now over here, the MACD is negative on the RTY chart. And so we see long signals. And then as soon as that MACD goes positive, now we only see short signals. So let's see here. David specifically mentioned if price, is above or below an indicator. So I guess, just so to kind of elaborate further on this, let me add some kind of moving average on my chart. All right, let's use an EMA here, an EMA 55. All right, there. So there's an EMA 55 on the chart. So let's open up BloodHound. And so if I wanted to compare price to some kind of moving average or some other indicator, then I'm going to go to the RTY chart, right? And I'm going to select the comparison solver, right? We're going to compare the closing price of the bar to that EMA. So I'm going to use the comparison solver here. Let me pull this down. Let me connect that up. All right. Okay. So we're going to compare the close of the bar to the EMA 55. All right. So input A will be price. Again, we're going to change the type to price. And the closing price is the default price there. So now input B, we need to switch this to the EMA 55. So let's open up our select indicator window and scroll down to the EMA. There we go. And change the period to 55. All right. The EMA only has one plot, so there's nothing to do here. It's already selected. There we go. So let's take a look at this there. So we can see, right, on the RTY chart, right, if the close is below the EMA, right, we're getting a long output on the NQ chart here on the right. And as soon as the closing price of the RTY goes above the EMA, then we get a long output, right? So now we're filtering. Let's reverse that, right? This is supposed to be a mean reversion, so I need to reverse my trend, filtering outputs here. So let's so with our comparison solver, I just need to reverse the outputs here, like so. There we go, right? So I just reversed my outputs there. So there we go. So now on the left chart, price is below the EMA, and now we have a long output. And when the price goes above the EMA, then we have a short output, right, on the right chart on the NQ. And there, so let's disconnect that, and we'll connect that into the AND node. All right, so now we're using price above or below the EMA as our directional filter there. And so there we go. All right, so that is David's question there on using multiple time frames and or instruments. So the key here, right, is you can see that our directional filter is running on the RTY 1 minute chart here. So on the solvers tab, so if if we didn't want this running on the RTY chart, so if you want this running on the NQ chart, right, you would just remove your instrument here and of course put whatever time frame in there that you want. So obviously this other chart here could be adjusted as as necessary. All right. Yeah, so Albert actually kind of has a follow-up question here on this same on this multi-time frame question here. So Albert's asking, can you generate signals from one chart and display them, or can you generate signals from a different instrument and display them on a chart of a different instrument, right? So for example, Albert wants to use the parent, ES chart, the full ES chart to do the analysis and generate the signals, but he wants to display those signals from the ES chart on the micro ES chart. So absolutely, Albert. And so it's basically the same concept here of what I've done, right? So I guess let's see. Let's make some quick adjustments here. So there we go. So let me pull up the micros. All right. So here's a 1 minute micro ES. And on the left, all right, there is the full ES chart. And so let me go into BloodHound here. And so I'm going to change this chart here from the RTY to the ES. All right. So they're both 1 minute charts. So, so the default time frame here is the micro ES 1 minute, and the chart that we want the calculations to come from is going to be the full ES 1 minute chart. And so what do I need to do is put both of my solvers here on the full ES chart here. So I need to take this price inflection, right, and move it from the default time frame, move it down to the ES chart. So I'm going to select it and then hit the down button. So you can see that everything here, all three of my solvers are running on the full ES chart, and I actually have no solvers on the default time frame. So now if I look at the logic board, right, all of my solvers here have the ES 1 minute chart listed above them. So all the solvers are running on the ES chart. And so there you go. Oh, I did change my chart, so I do need to reload everything here. Let's reload. All right. And yeah, so all of these signals are coming, are being generated from the ES chart that we can see over here. Yeah, so there we go. So here's a down bar reversing to an up bar, and on the micro ES chart there's a long signal, and the closing price is below the EMA here. And then over here we go. So we have up bars reversing to a down bar, and the close is above the EMA, and so we have a short signal right on the micro ES chart. Right, so there you go, Albert. So yeah, very simple to do, right? Yeah, very simple to do. Just put all your solvers, on the full-sized contract, and and then just put BloodHound on the micro-sized chart, micro instrument. All right, so that was Albert's kind of follow-up question there. And all right, so David also, I guess, has a follow-up here to what I've been doing. So David's saying, can you copy and move up and down on the solvers tab? So if for some reason you need the same solver on two different time frames, then I can make a copy of this comparison solver, right? So you can see I have two of them now, and then I can move one of them up to the default time frame, right? And so if I go to my logic board here, go to existing nodes, default time frame, and so there is the duplicate that I just made. Right, let's put this down here. Right, so I have one solver running on the full ES contract, and this other solver, right, is using data from the micro ES chart, or in other words, the default time frame. So you just gotta keep in mind, what is the default time frame? Well, that's always the chart that BloodHound is running on, right? So this BloodHound, right, is running on the micro 1 minute chart.